Welcome to lesson 3 of whatever this class is, middle school B. Sorry, I'm in the middle of recording videos for all kinds of classes right now, and I had a little minor brain breakage, meltdown, something. I don't know, but I'm back now. We're going to be talking about subtracting integers. So in our last lesson, we stuck a plus between some numbers and did stuff with them, right? We're going to do the same thing with subtracting integers, and we have the same two major possibilities. We have things where it's going to be the same sign, and then we have things where it's going to be a different sign. Different. That's two F's. Different sign. We did it. Yay. Did you did it? Did you write that in your notes? If you did, good job. Let me know in the comments that you wrote the notes. Okay. So, if we have things that are the same. So now if you watched our last lesson on adding integers, the rules are the exact same. For same sign, we're going to add. Let me shrink this a little. And keep the sign. Keep the sign. That's the same rule we learned in the last lesson. We're just kind of tweaking it just a little here. More like just different kind of example types, really. It's these two lessons are kind of the same lesson, but split into two. For different signs, we subtract and keep the sign of, put it down in the comments, pause the video right now, keep the sign of which one, pause it, put it down there. Keep the sign, golly, got a cough, tickle in my throat all of a sudden. Keep the sign of the larger number. Larger number. Okay, so let's look at some examples. So same sign with subtraction. So we might have this. Negative 3 minus 4. Now, this is tricky. Okay, now one thing that I'm going to teach you that's kind of a new thing. It's not really a thing. It's more of a strategy to help us whenever be able to see what we need to see. So what I want you to do, anytime you see a negative in between numbers, so basically all the examples and practice problems and whatever else for this video, I want you to ka-chink, ka-chink. Okay, let me show you what that means. Okay, so what that means is, in this case, we're going to see another example of one that does it a little differently, but I want you to ka-chink, ka-chink. Now, you notice I'm using my different color. I expect you to do the same thing. If you're not one of my students and you either can't use different colors because your teacher doesn't let you or something, or if you're not one of my students and you're just like, I'm not doing that, then I would recommend adding parentheses in there too to clean it up. Now, if you're one of my students or if you're just following my recommendations, if you use your second color, you don't necessarily have to put parentheses. It's kind of whatever makes you feel the most comfortable. Now, back to this problem. So we had negative 3 minus 4. That's what was here before I ka-chinked it, right? And so what we changed it into plus a negative. So see this subtraction here turns into adding. That's why it follows the same rules as our last lesson. So now the signs are the same because we got negative 3 and negative 4. And so we add and keep their sign. So the answer here is going to be negative 7. If we have the same sign with subtraction, let's see. Let's do one more. And let's just practice and cement this idea in there well. Okay. So let's do negative 18 minus about 6. So we've got a negative in the middle of two numbers. without parentheses or anything else. Now, we're going to learn later that sometimes if you have parentheses butted up, that can be multiplication, but don't worry about that for now. We'll wait until we see that and in practice and all that kind of stuff. For now, whenever we see a negative in the middle of two numbers, we're going to ka-chink it. Okay, so let's ka-chink it. Ka-chink, right? So negative 18 plus negative 6. So that turns into negative 18 plus negative 6. So the signs are the same, so we're going to add and we're going to keep the sign. So they were negative. Excuse me. And then the answer is going to be negative. So negative 24. Let's look at some with different sign, okay? So let's start out with, how about 8 minus 5? Okay. 8 minus 5. We're going to start. Now, I know that's one that you can do in your head, and that's fine. But we're going to practice and get in the habit of ka-chinking it, okay? Because it's going to be helpful to stay in that practice lane, because that'll help keep all these negative things straight in our head. So 8 minus 5 turns into 8 plus negative 5 when we ka-chink it. The signs are different. So we subtract and keep the sign of the bigger one. Which one's bigger, 8 or 5? 8 is bigger, right? So this turns into positive. What's 8 minus 5? 3. Okay, so let's do another one of these. What about 3 minus 6? Now this one is where, see, now this is more useful if we think about ka-chinking it. It's like, what's going on here? We've got a bigger number over here and a littler number over here. That gets a little scary, right? And so we're going to ka-chink it. And then we see that, okay, this one's positive and this one's negative. So the signs are different. So we subtract and keep the sign of the bigger one. Well, what's 6 minus 3? Well, of course, 6 minus 3 is 3. I didn't even mean to make that the same number, although it's not the same number because the bigger one this time is the 6. So our answer turns out to be negative 6. All right, now one more example type, and this one's really important. This one's going to show a different way of ka-chinking, and actually this one's going to look like at first that it should belong in this column. But let me quit jawing about it and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so excuse me. So let's say negative 5 minus. Now I'm going to put some parentheses in here. Remember we talked about this. These parentheses are just to keep it neat and organized. They don't do anything other than that. So negative 5 minus negative 7. Now, we do what I said before. We've got negatives in between two numbers. And so we got negatives in between two numbers. Then we have to ka-chink it. You see how that changed? So up here it was ka-chink, right? And then two negatives right here, we ka-chink. Well, that turns into, now take a look at that. What does that become? That becomes negative 5 plus a positive 7, right? So that turns into different signs because we have a negative 5 and a positive 7. So it's going to follow this rule. Now you see why this falls into that category. So, excuse me. So let's say 7 minus 5, which is 2. And then we've got to look and see which one's bigger, the 5 or the 7. The 7's bigger. It's positive, which means our answer is positive. Drink some water here. My throat is still all scratchy tonight. Okay, let's do a couple more examples of this. Make sure we've got it. I'm not going to have columns this time, so you can take a look and think through which column and which type it is, right? So let's call this guided practice GP number 1. Now I don't think we've done a GP in a video before. Now I can't check to make sure you're doing this, but this is what I want you to do with guided practices. With guided practices, I'm going to write a problem over here, and then I want you to pause it, and then I want you to try it yourself. In pencil would be a good idea. Use your different colors, all those things, and then come back and check. And if you missed it, this is what I want you to think. I want you to think that is totally fine, and I want you to think, okay, where did I make the mistake? And figure out where your mistake was and fix it. If you're one of my students, you can't find your mistake, then don't stress about that, because you can either ask me A, you can ask me in class, or B, you can ask me a question on our Discord server. Either one, you can ask me if you get in a guided practice and you like, I don't understand where I made the mistake. Ask about it, because that's how we learn, right? So our first guided practice is going to be 5 minus -8. All right. So pause the video and come back and try it, and then come back and check your work. Okay, now you're back. So hopefully what you did was, and if you didn't, it's okay. We saw the negative in between. We're going to ka-chink it. So now this turns into same sign, because we've got +5 plus 8. So +5 plus 8, we add and keep the sign, so this turns into a +13. All right, let's do one more guided practice, maybe two more. Let's see. Let's do a GP number 2. Okay, GP number 2 is going to be -6 minus 5. Pause the video, come back. All right, now that you're back, if you didn't make a mistake on this one, you would have ka-chinked it. It turns into same sign again, right? Because we got -6, -5, so we're going to add and keep the sign. This particular one might be one that might have tripped you up. You might have accidentally subtracted. That would be a common way to make a mistake on this problem. But they are, in fact, the same sign, because 6 is negative and the 5 is negative. That's what the ka-chink helps us see. All right, so this turns into 11. And we keep the sign, so it's in fact -11. Let's do at least one more. GP number 3. All right. So here we go. Let's do, how about 12? Double digits. Minus 8. Pause and come back. All right, now this one is like something we're doing before. So if you're following my strong recommendations, and if you're one of my students in my class, it's not a recommendation. It's you need to do this, okay? So you ka-chink that, right? And so that it shows us that the signs are different. So we subtract and keep the sign of the bigger one, which of course is 12, which is why this is like, okay, we've seen this before, because it turns into +4. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right, that's good for that lesson. I shall see you in the next one. We start talking about multiplying integers. Yeah, that. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Have a great day. Bye-bye.